Welcome back to Nutrapreneur, where we unveil groundbreaking insights into the nutraceutical and plant-based industries. I'm your host, Bethany, and today we have the pleasure of speaking with Indy Kaur, the founder of Plant Futures. Plant Futures stands at the forefront of the UK's plant-based food sector, offering unparalleled consultancy and insights. Indy, it's an honor to have you with us today.
Oh, hi, Bethany. Nice to meet you.
Yes, it's great to meet you as well. So first, I think it'd be great for you to tell us about the initial vision behind Plant Futures and what really motivated you to start this venture.
Yeah, I think the vision for me really came from the fact that we're in a new and emerging market right now within the plant-based food category and segment, and that requires thinking differently. So I felt that we needed an organization that could work within the plant-based food sector, which could think differently, take a few more risks. And the way that I positioned Plant Futures was to work from the outside in. So we're an external organization, but we work with businesses. So I'll work with retailers, brands, suppliers, etc. But we're the ones that will just be a little bit more pragmatic, provocative, and think a bit differently, taking some of that risk and fear about change. I love the statement that everyone loves innovation until they have to change.
Right, right, exactly. And plant-based foods really are just rapidly evolving. So, how does Plant Futures navigate this dynamic market to provide effective strategies for different businesses?
Yeah, we have a pretty impressive network within the UK and globally, which has taken years to build, to be fair. And everyone that works with Plant Futures and is associated with Plant Futures, we're all experts within the sector, so with several years of experience. And then it comes to building the network, which means getting to the trade shows and conferences wherever they may be, especially if there's important topics being discussed. And the network of NGOs, I mean, there's some amazing NGOs within this sector. So networking with NGOs, having regular conversations with retailers to understand like what's going on in their world, like what's doing well, what's not doing so well. With brands, with innovators, with investors as well, they play an absolute pivotal role within this sector. So, in terms of helping, understanding what's what, it really comes through the network and our tenacity to really stay well connected.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is important to connect with those retailers to understand what customers are looking for essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely fundamental. I mean, especially within the UK, we have a handful of major retailers, and they're the ones the closest to consumers across whether the major channels really. And but staying close to retailers that goes across major malts, food service, the new delivery platforms. I mean, delivery services is just ramping up, and it'll be the same in lots of other markets, especially in the US as well, but certainly within the UK. So staying close to the changing, adapting retail landscape, understanding consumers, where they're at right now, where they're going, where we need to get them to, that all sits within the thing that's the closest to the consumer, which is typically a range of retailers, yeah, which covers food service, etc.
Yes. And, I've done some research about the company, and you've mentioned a unique process to help brands succeed across the different channels. So, could you elaborate on this approach and what its impact is?
Yeah, I'd say like it's kind of unique in a way because I don't think it's used very much. Not within the food industry, but probably with other sectors. I just call it like don't spend too much money, and I really back it. So the minimal viable product methodology, which is used a lot in technology, and what's great about it is that you really don't spend a lot of money. And actually, what I find is the less that you spend, the more creative you become or businesses become. So, number one thing I always advocate for is do the work, but spend the least amount possible. And it'll really test the MVP model. And in the first few years of launching a food product, it's you just don't know what's going to happen. Like you can think that everyone's going to love this product and they really want to buy it, and why would they not want to buy it, and all this sort of stuff. Until you launch, you have absolutely no idea. So when you launch, make it as cheap as possible. Like just do the basics. During COVID, during lockdowns, I started developing a new snacks brand. It was just in my kitchen, putting some stickers on a box, and like I couldn't service the little demand in my neighborhood, but that's a good example of an MVP. Then you know, okay, cool. I'm going to go and put some money into it. And yes, I have a product that people are going to buy. So you mitigate risk and you increase your confidence level, and you can be a lot more savvy with your spending.
Yeah, and I think that's a great approach for new and upcoming brands to take because I think a lot of brands do get a little overly enthusiastic and probably spend a lot of money and then they're not seeing the sales that they were hoping for.
Yeah, this is a major problem. I mean, we talk about it as if what it is just seen as the status norm, and it's never really challenged. And it's a true fact. I mean, within the UK, we often use the stat that 70% of food businesses fail within the first 12 months. And that's like a lot of failure, and it's unnecessary. The tech industry probably it may actually have a little bit of a higher success rate. I might not be quite right there, but I mean, there's no reason food businesses should have such a high failure rate if they do it right. I mean, the MVP model is brilliant. It gives you an opportunity to test and learn, make those little tweaks. I see lots of brands failing based on small mistakes which could have been avoidable, and some of it's on the design, some of it's on the packaging size, some of it's on the price or not managing their cash flow. And all of that can be mitigated through the MVP approach. It just sounds very boring, but it's very important.
Yes, maybe boring, but effective.
Yeah, exactly. Effective is a good word.
And, I've noticed even when I've been doing my grocery shopping that the plant-based sector is becoming more and more crowded and it's really growing. So, how do you ensure that your clients stand out in this competitive landscape?
They really need to. I suppose it's a crowded place in one way, but the size of the opportunity, the future market is still significantly huge, really. Sometimes I always kind of come back to competition's a good thing because in some ways you can talk about its evolution. Like the market will eventually just refine the crowd to get the best people, like best brands succeeding, really. So there is a necessity for competition. Like Coca-Cola and Pepsi probably wouldn't hit the market unless it was both of them. Apple and Android, they work better together than if only one had launched. So we do need the crowd, especially in a new and emerging market, because that's just the nature of it. Over time, that will start consolidating in the various ways that a new market does. But in order to stand out of the crowd, brands really need to, one, be quality obsessed, especially for a lot of people that are buying some of the new products for the first time. So to be quality obsessed, which means exactly what it says. And the more the brands can be that, I think the better place they're going to be positioned. So that means buying your product off shelf whenever you're buying it out in store, getting your friends to buy it, put it in the oven. If it's a baked product, does it bake the way you think it should bake? If it's not, then go fix it in the factory really quickly. And that's the foundational bit, but I don't see enough brands and brand owners doing that. The best brands are quality obsessed. Then the next part is really just knowing your value proposition. It's making sure that what you think your brand does and the person that you think is going to buy your brand is actually the person who buys your brand. So quality obsessed and then consumer obsessed. But it's more about the consumer, less about you and the brand.
Absolutely. And I love that phrase, quality obsessed, because I, of course, am passionate about quality assurance, but I think it oftentimes gets put on the back burner and maybe isn't at the forefront of everyone's mind whenever they're developing products. So I think always putting quality first, and then, like you said, truly understanding what the consumers are wanting.
Yeah, exactly. And just sense check with them that who you think's buying it is actually buying it, because you might just be
Yes,
up otherwise.
I
But
know.
a great example is Goo. When I was working at Goo Puds in the UK, it's a premium dessert brand. You can learn a lot of these practices from chefs. Sorry, from chefs. So Fred Panavoy is the chef at Goo. Oh, it's typical, isn't it?
It's okay.
Yeah. And chefs are great because they are quality obsessed. So even if some people within the brand or the business don't see it, a chef will always bring you back to quality, which is great.
This episode is brought to you by NutraPayments.com. If your business needs credit card processing that fully integrates with most major Nutra software platforms, offers the lowest industry prices, and has built-in features like recurring billing, $0 trials, and chargeback prevention, then visit us at NutraPayments.com for a free online quote. Are you able to share with us a success story where Plant Futures insights significantly transformed a client's strategy or market presence?
Yeah, I'd say a good example is an Italian brand called Polly. They're predominantly plant-based. They're a veg-led business, Italian heritage, a business that's been running for 120 years. They were in the UK market, but they weren't getting the traction that they wanted to get. And learning about the brand and the brand story and the heritage and understanding like what they had to offer as a business, both from a brand perspective and an own label perspective, I just thought there was something really exciting underneath this. So during the strategic process, and this is where it comes down to just don't spend a lot of money because some of the answers are just right there. We went on a journey for a few weeks. We went into retailers. We took loads of pictures of the fixtures. We had a look at restaurant menu trends. But it was looking at the fixtures and really challenging the status quo. It was like, antipasti is really big in chilled. Why is antipasti not as big in the ambient grocery fixture? So chilled, refrigerated, and ambient grocery. And then that just led us into a pipeline of thoughts. Well, has anyone even thought about reigniting the jars, ambient, the jars of antipasti and veg and all the really cool stuff you can do? You can have fermented, you could, have all the pickles, and they make great sides as well. So mix it with your salad or have it as a side. And that's what we went after. So that was one part of the strategy. I think we had like a few different elements, but that was one of the elements. And the brand, when the business went ahead, Polly went ahead, they secured a £1.5 million contract quite soon after that with one of the major retailers, and then went on to launch 10 new lines with another major retailer, which was amazing. And so some of this is sometimes the answers aren't that complicated if you're surrounded by the right people that can just challenge some of the norm. And that was it. I mean, that was with Polly. And last time I spoke to the MD at Polly, about 90 to 100% of that strategy has been delivered, which is amazing. Like, that's hugely motivating.
Yes, that's fantastic. And when you're talking about food, there's often, regulations come up. So the regulatory landscapes are constantly changing. So how does Plant Futures stay ahead of these shifts to safeguard its clients' interests?
I think what's really special about the plant-based sector is that we have an impressive group of NGOs, so NGO organizations who are pushing on government and regulatory and various labeling standards, etc. So within that network, that's how I and Plant Futures stay updated. And so there's a whole group of them: Plant-Based Food Alliance in the UK, Plant-Based Food Association in the US, Good Food Institute, ProVeg, Alternative Protein Association. I mean, there's a lot, and they're very well funded and well resourced. They're in the best position to really stay on top of like where the regulatory discussions are and where the legal discussions are, because they're incredibly difficult topics and also take years to get to a solution. So the best that I can do for the clients is that I work with is understand what's going on at the moment. Where do we have permission to play? What do we need to be wary of? And at the moment, there doesn't seem to be, although there's a lot of noise, there isn't really many answers being delivered, which is frustrating, but it's also an opportunity. So it is really just striking that balance. I tend to stay away from conversations and topics where I'm not the expert, and regulatory is an expert field. So I lean on the other organizations that are pioneering it there.
Yeah, and luckily there are quite a few resources out there now where you can stay connected to these regulatory agencies. I know a lot of them will send out emails if you subscribe, or they host webinars and things like that. So you can really stay connected and up to date, even more so than you could in the past.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is quite easy to stay up to date. I mean, and also just to know things it was one of my last roles for like it was the largest retailer in the UK. We were discussing like vegan standards, and actually like there is no real other than what the Vegan Society have kind of put down, which is brilliant. That is the go-to document, and a few other trademarks have done the same in terms of, well, how do we define vegan from a technical standards perspective? So, and the ISO standard are working through the definition for plant-based, but all of this will we're still a little bit away from that coming to fruition. The most recent was dairy designation in the UK, and that was worrying. But what was great was one of the NGOs took the lead, wrote a letter, and we had lots and lots of brands signing up to it. So I think there is that middle place between the regulatory experts and the brands, and just they can input as and when necessary. But I think for the larger corporations, they tend to have their internal legal teams who are very up to speed with what's going on.
Yes, absolutely. And with your rich experience, how do you see the future of plant-based foods evolving in the UK and even globally?
Yeah, I love this question because I like hands down, and I say it word for word, I think plant-based is the most exciting sector to be working in right now within the food industry. There isn't any other food sector right now globally where it's full of entrepreneurs and innovation constantly coming out with new things, and which are really exciting, and buoyant with investors who are just interested to be involved or watching brief. And it's just this whole energy behind the sector, and what we're doing right now is we're creating a future that doesn't exist right now as well. So there's a bit of a white paper. We know we need to get to a more healthy, sustainable food system. We know we have an obesity crisis and malnutrition at the same time, and we know plants are a part of the solution. So it's this big problem an opportunity at the same time. So once we break through it, it's just going to be amazing. It is for anyone that's in the sector, I think it's brilliant. And I do expect more people to want to get involved because it's a food category that brings together purpose and passion. And yeah, purpose and passion together. I mean, yeah, plants, people, planet, really. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. I think it's a very exciting market to be in.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And for any startups or SMEs that are entering the plant-based market, what key advice would you offer for their journey?
Um, I think for what's really important for startups and SMEs is that just surround yourself with experts and understand your blind spots. I don't know where it came from, but there is this notion that it's easy or straightforward to develop a product and launch it on a retailer shelf. Is actually very, very difficult, especially when you need to think about the logistics, the supply chains, the pack size, the product technical standards, all this sort of stuff. So if you're new and you're an entrepreneur and you've got a great idea and a great product that you want to launch, or you're an SME and you're going into scale up, make sure you're make sure know your blind spots, but you might not know your blind spots because you might not know what you don't know. And in which case, just surround yourselves by experts. So the people that have done it, some who have done it successfully and some that may have failed, who can also share some really great information, would probably be the best. Just make sure that you surround yourself by experts and just listen, like understand what you may or may not know or may not be good at. To do well in the food industry, it comes with years of experience.
Absolutely. And I think that's great advice. Being around those experts is helpful. And like you said earlier, a lot of the answers to those questions are actually quite simple or quite easy to obtain if you're surrounded by the right people.
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes it's just grab a coffee and you'll be like, oh, okay, that's what I need to do. Like it's that simple. When you know the answer is because you've done it for 5 or 10 years. And if you're new in the business, someone is very willing to pass that on.
Right, right. And are there any upcoming projects or initiatives at Plant Future that excite you the most?
Oh, yes, we've got two at the moment. We're going to start off 2024 with a bang. So one is a creative campaign idea for the UK market initially. We're running that as a pilot trial. And we're going to follow the MVP model. So you come back to me in 6 months and see how I'm getting on with it, because I'm definitely going to be following the MVP model. And that's all about how we get plant-based proteins in growth, accelerate the growth of plant-based proteins in the UK market initially. And those proteins include tofu, the alternatives, lentils, beans, pulses, all of those plant proteins. And then adjacent to that is what I'm calling an Insights to Action workshop, which is where we have lots of new insights. And I have a motto which basically says that knowledge is only useful if it's applied. And there's no use of loads of insights sitting on my laptop. So we're going to take these insights and we're going to action them. And the action means we're getting a lot of plant-based food businesses together at the end of February in London for a one-day event where we're going to workshop some of the problem areas within the category, taking a real pragmatic approach, like, what are we doing right? What are we not doing right? What can we do then to move it on? And that will then generate a playbook, like a roadmap for the plant-based sector. And as far as I know, I think we're only one of two markets that are taking this approach. So it's a really new way of working, which is exciting.
Yes, that's all very exciting, and I look forward to seeing everything come into play this year.
Thanks very much.
Yes, well, thank you once again, Indy, for sharing your invaluable insights and the visionary work of Plant Futures. For those looking to delve deeper into the world of plant-based food business, visit Plant Futures' website linked in our podcast description. Don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts on today's enlightening discussion. Join us next time on Nutrapreneur for more exciting dives into the nutraceutical and plant-based industries. Stay curious and stay informed.